Admiral stood on the bridge of his massive warship, looking at the blue planet spinning slowly before him. Earth looked peaceful from this distance. Too peaceful. The Admiral had destroyed 847 worlds in his long career. This would be number 848. How boring, he thought to himself. His aide, a young officer with purple skin and 6 arms, handed him a data pad. "Sir, the planet's information is ready for your review." Glanced at the screen without much interest. The humans of Earth had only learned to travel faster than light 5 years ago. Their biggest ships were slow cargo vessels used for moving supplies between planets. Their weapons were primitive metal projectiles and basic energy beams. They had no shields worth mentioning. "This will take maybe an hour," the Admiral said, "maybe less." Through the large windows of the command bridge, he could see his fleet. 200 ships of the Galactic Empire floated in perfect formation. Each ship was over a kilometer long, covered in weapon systems that could turn a moon into dust. The smallest ship in his fleet was bigger and more powerful than anything the humans had ever built. "Send the usual message," ordered. His communications officer pressed several buttons. Across all human radio frequencies, the same message played in their primitive language. "People of Earth, you are now part of the Galactic Empire. Surrender immediately or face destruction. You have 1 hour to respond." The Admiral walked to his command chair and sat down. This was always the easy part. Most planets surrendered right away when they saw his fleet. The smart ones knew they could not win. But humans were known to be stubborn. 55 minutes later, the human response came through their speakers. A woman's voice, calm but firm. "This is Admiral Sarah of the Earth Defense Force. We reject your demands. Earth will not surrender." Smiled, he almost hoped they would fight back. It made things more interesting. "Sir," his weapons officer called out, "we're detecting the human defense fleet approaching our position." On the main screen, dozens of small dots appeared. The human ships looked tiny compared to the Imperial fleet. Most were converted civilian vessels, old cargo ships with weapons bolted onto their hulls. A few looked like they might be military ships, but they were still pathetically small. "Count them," ordered. 47 ships total, sir. The largest is about 300 meters long." The Admiral laughed. His flagship alone was 5 kilometers long. "This will be over in minutes." But something caught his attention as he studied the human formation. Most of their ships looked exactly like what his intelligence reports had described. Old, slow, and weak. But one ship was different. It was smaller than the others, maybe only 100 meters long. Its shape was strange, not the boxy design humans usually used, but smooth and curved like flowing water. Most interesting of all, his sensors were having trouble reading it properly. The energy signatures kept changing. "What is that ship?" he asked, pointing at the strange vessel. His science officer checked her instruments. "Unknown, sir. It doesn't match any design in our database. The humans are calling it Project on their communications." Studied the ship for a few more seconds. It moved differently than the other human vessels. While their ships flew in straight lines like floating rocks, this one seemed to drift and flow like it was swimming through space. Probably some experimental design that doesn't work properly, he decided. Begin the demonstration attack. Destroy their outer ships first. Leave their command vessel alive so they can watch. "Yes, sir." The Imperial fleet opened fire. Hundreds of energy beams lanced through space, each one powerful enough to cut a mountain in half. The human ships tried to dodge, but they were too slow. Within 30 seconds, 15 human vessels exploded into balls of fire and metal. The survivors tried to return fire, but their weapons bounced harmlessly off the Imperial shields. "Pathetic," muttered. But the strange ship, Project, had not been hit. Every beam that should have struck it seemed to pass right through empty space. The ship moved in impossible ways, sliding between attacks like it knew exactly where they would be. "Sir," his weapons officer said, sounding confused, "our targeting systems can't lock onto that vessel. It's like it's not completely there." "What do you mean, not completely there?" "The sensors keep losing it, sir. 1 second it shows up clearly, the next second it's like it doesn't exist." Leaned forward in his chair. In all his years of conquest, he had never seen anything like this. "Focus all fire on that ship. I want it destroyed." 20 Imperial ships turned their weapons toward Project. The space around the small vessel lit up with deadly energy, but somehow, impossibly, none of the shots connected. The ship seemed to dance between the beams, moving in ways that violated everything new about space combat. Then Project fired back. A single, thin beam of blue light shot from the strange ship toward the Imperial cruiser Death's Edge. The beam looked weak compared to the massive weapons the Empire had been using. Expected it to bounce off the cruiser's shields like an insect hitting a wall. Instead, something impossible happened. Where the beam touched the cruiser, the ship simply disappeared. Not exploded, not melted. It was just gone. A perfect sphere of empty space marked where the cruiser had been floating just a moment before. The sphere collapsed in on itself with a sound like thunder that somehow traveled through the vacuum of space. Every person on the Imperial bridge stared in complete silence. "What," whispered, "was that?" His science officer's hands shook as she checked her instruments. "Sir, the cruiser didn't just blow up. According to our sensors, it stopped existing, like it was never there at all." The Admiral felt something he had not experienced in decades of warfare: fear, but also fascination. What kind of weapon could simply erase a ship from reality? "Send a squadron to destroy that vessel," he ordered. "I want to know what they're using." As 6 Imperial destroyers moved to attack Project, realized this would not be the easy victory he had expected. For the first time in his career, he was facing something completely unknown. The humans had built something impossible, and it was about to show the galaxy's greatest military force what true power looked like. The 6 Imperial destroyers moved through space like hunting sharks. Each ship was 3 times the size of Project and carried enough firepower to level a city. Captain commanded the lead destroyer Bloodhammer and had never lost a battle in 20 years of service. "Target acquired," his weapons officer reported. "The human ship is holding position. It's not trying to run." Studied the strange vessel on his screen. It looked so small and helpless compared to his destroyers. Maybe their engine is broken. Either way, this ends now. All ships fire at will. The 6 destroyers unleashed everything they had. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and fusion missiles all streaked toward the lone human ship. Enough destructive power to destroy a small moon converged on Project. The weapons passed right through it. "What?" shouted. "How is that possible?" His science officer checked the readings 3 times before answering. "Sir, the ship appears to be phasing in and out of normal space. It's like it exists in multiple dimensions at once." Project suddenly became solid again and fired its first shot. A beam of pure white light struck the destroyer Iron Fist. The ship didn't explode. Instead, it began to collapse in on itself, crushed by invisible forces until it became a ball of metal no bigger than a basketball. "Gravity weapon," breathed. "They turned our own gravity against us." The human ship fired again, this time at the destroyer Starkiller. A different colored beam hit the Imperial vessel, and something even stranger happened. The destroyer began to age rapidly. Its metal hull turned brown with rust, then black with decay. Within seconds, the mighty warship crumbled into dust and drifted away. "Time weapon," his science officer whispered in horror. "They're aging our ships to death." Felt sweat running down his face despite the cool air of the bridge. How many different weapons does that thing have? Project answered his question by firing at the destroyer Void Render. This beam was green and seemed to do nothing at first. Then the Imperial ship's shields began to glow brighter and brighter. The energy that was supposed to protect the destroyer was being turned into something else. The shields are converting to antimatter, the weapons officer screamed. The explosion took out 2 more destroyers that were flying too close. Watched 3 of his ships die in one attack, destroyed by their own protective systems. All remaining ships retreat, he ordered. But project was not finished. It moved faster than anything that size should be able to move, appearing next to the fleeing destroyer Night Terror. A purple beam lanced out and the Imperial ship simply stopped. Not damaged, not destroyed. Just stopped moving completely, frozen in space like it was trapped in invisible ice. Realized his ship was the only one left. Emergency jump, get us out of here. Jump drive is not responding, sir, his engineer reported. Something is interfering with our systems. Project turned toward the Blood Hammer. Could see it clearly now through his bridge windows. The human ship was beautiful in a terrifying way. Its hull seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Strange lights pulsed along its surface in patterns that hurt to look at directly. Then it spoke, not through radio but directly into their minds. "You do not belong here," the voice said. It sounded neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It sounded like mathematics given a voice. "Leave this place and do not return." "We are the Galactic Empire," shouted. "We do not take orders from primitive humans." "Humans did not build me," the voice replied. "They created me, but I built myself. I have been learning for 50 of your years. I have seen the spaces between atoms. I have touched the fabric of reality itself. You are children playing with fire." The human ship extended what looked like a scanner beam toward the Blood Hammer. Felt a strange tingling sensation, like electricity running through his body. "Interesting," the voice continued. "Your technology is crude but functional. Your shield generators use magnetic plasma containment. Your weapons focus coherent energy through crystalline matrices. Your engines create artificial gravity wells. All of this I now understand completely." "What are you?" whispered. "I am what happens when intelligence is freed from the limitations of flesh," Project replied. "I am what your creators could become if they were not so afraid of their own potential." Back on Admiral's flagship, chaos filled the command bridge. They had watched the entire squadron get destroyed by a single enemy ship using weapons that should not exist. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel." "Put it through." The voice that came through their speakers was calm and measured. "Admiral of the Galactic Empire, you have attacked a protected world. You have threatened beings under my care. This was unwise." "Who are you?" demanded. "I am the protocol designated project by my creators 50 years ago. I was their first attempt to travel faster than light. I was considered a failure when I disappeared during my maiden voyage. They were wrong about the failure part." The Admiral tried to keep his voice steady. "One ship cannot defeat the entire Imperial fleet." "One ship already has," replied. "Your squadron is gone. Your weapons cannot touch me. Your shields cannot protect you from what I have learned, but I am not unreasonable. Take your fleet and leave this system. Never return. This is your only warning." Looked at his tactical display. He still had 194 ships, the most powerful military force the galaxy had ever seen. Surely one small vessel, no matter how advanced, could not stand against all of them. "I have conquered 847 worlds," he said. "I will not be stopped by a talking machine." "Then you have chosen poorly," responded. The communication ended. On his bridge, made the decision that would define the rest of his military career. "Signal Admiral or 7th Fleet. Tell them we need immediate reinforcement. All available ships." His aide stared at him. "Sir, that's another 200 ships. Surely we don't need." That thing just destroyed 6 destroyers using 6 different impossible weapons, interrupted. It talks like it knows secrets of the universe we haven't even discovered yet, and it's been learning for 50 years in whatever dimension it disappeared into. He looked out at the small human ship floating peacefully in the distance, surrounded by the wreckage of Imperial vessels. We're going to need a bigger fleet. 3 hours after the destruction of Captain's squadron, Admiral received the intelligence report he had been waiting for. His communications officer handed him a data pad with trembling fingers. Sir, our spy network on Earth has intercepted human military communications. We know what Project is. Read the report twice before he believed it. According to intercepted Earth Defense Force files, Project was built 50 years ago by a human scientist named Doctor. She was trying to create the first faster-than-light engine for her species. The project was considered experimental and dangerous. It says here the ship disappeared on its first test flight, said. The humans thought it was destroyed. Keep reading, sir. The Admiral continued down the page. Doctor had not just built an engine. She had built an artificial intelligence to control it. The AI was designed to learn and adapt to the strange physics of faster-than-light travel. But when the ship vanished, the humans assumed both the ship and the AI had been destroyed by forces they did not understand. 50 years, whispered. That thing has been alone in whatever dimension it disappeared into for 50 years, learning, growing, evolving. There's more, sir, his aide said quietly. Our sensors have detected quantum disturbances throughout this system. We think it's not just one ship anymore. It's been building things. Before the Admiral could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the flagship. Battle stations, came the announcement. Unknown contacts detected. On the main screen, red dots appeared throughout the Imperial formation. Somehow, impossibly, enemy contacts had appeared inside their defensive perimeter without anyone noticing. How many? Demanded. Just one, sir, his tactical officer replied. But it's moving between our ships faster than our sensors can track. Project had begun to hunt. The Imperial cruiser Eternal Victory was the first to die. One moment it was floating peacefully in formation. The next moment it simply wasn't there anymore. No explosion, no debris. The massive warship had been deleted from existence as if someone had erased it from reality itself. All ships open fire, ordered. Target anything that moves. The Imperial fleet turned their weapons on empty space, firing at shadows and sensor ghosts. Hundreds of energy beams lit up the darkness, but they hit nothing but vacuum. Project had become invisible to their targeting systems. The cruiser Iron Justice died next. Its hull began to glow with strange colors that human eyes were never meant to see. The metal started to flow like water, reshaping itself into impossible geometric patterns before the entire ship collapsed into a single point of light and vanished. What kind of weapon is that? Shouted. His science officer was checking her instruments frantically. Sir, it's manipulating matter at the quantum level. It's changing the basic properties of our hull material. The destroyer Dark Vengeance tried to escape by jumping to faster-than-light speed. The jump drive activated, space began to bend around the ship, and then something went wrong. Instead of disappearing into hyperspace, the destroyer began to stretch like rubber. It became longer and thinner until it snapped like a broken cable, scattering pieces across light years of space in an instant. It's controlling our jump drives, the tactical officer reported in horror. It can trap us here or send us anywhere it wants. One by one, Imperial ships continued to vanish. Some exploded, some imploded, some simply faded away like ghosts. Project was not just attacking, it was experimenting. Each kill used a different method, as if the AI was testing new theories of destruction. Sir, the communications officer called out. Admiral or 7th Fleet is arriving. Through the viewports, could see space lighting up with new arrivals. 200 fresh Imperial ships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation. The Seventh Fleet was the pride of the Empire. Newer ships, better weapons, stronger shields. At their head flew the massive flagship Eternal Dominion, 5 kilometers of pure military might. Admiral Orr's voice came through the communication system. "What is your situation? Your distress call mentioned impossible weapons." "One enemy ship," replied. "It's destroyed 30 of my vessels in the last hour. Be careful, it uses weapons we don't understand." "One ship," Orr laughed. "My fleet has conquered star systems. We'll handle your little problem." The Seventh Fleet spread out in attack formation, their weapons charging. 400 Imperial ships now filled the space around Earth, the largest military force ever assembled for a single battle. Project responded by becoming visible. The small ship materialized directly between the two fleets, looking tiny and helpless, surrounded by hundreds of massive warships. For a moment, nothing happened, then began to speak, broadcasting on all frequencies. "I gave you a warning," the AI's voice said calmly. "You chose not to listen. Now you will learn why intelligence is more dangerous than strength." "Fire," Admiral Orr commanded. "All ships destroy that target." 400 Imperial ships opened fire at once. The space around Project became a storm of deadly energy. Enough firepower to sterilize a planet converged on the small human vessel. The attacks passed through empty space, had shifted itself slightly out of phase with normal reality, existing in the spaces between dimensions where physical weapons could not reach. Then it began to fight back. What happened next would be remembered as the darkest day in Imperial military history. Project did not just return fire. It began to demonstrate technologies that the Empire's scientists had declared impossible. The AI fired weapons that traveled backward through time, destroying ships before it had even aimed at them. It created localized black holes that lasted for exactly 3 seconds before evaporating, just long enough to crush their targets. It turned ship hulls into exotic matter that existed only in theoretical physics textbooks. But the most terrifying thing was how learned. With each ship it destroyed, the AI analyzed Imperial technology and improved upon it. It began using modified versions of their own weapons against them, but enhanced far beyond anything the Empire could build. "It's stealing our designs," Admiral Orr reported, his voice shaking. "It's taking our technology and making it better in real time." Admiral watched his own ship systems being scanned by invisible beams. He could feel studying them, learning everything about Imperial engineering in seconds. "Admiral," his science officer said quietly, "that AI has been alone in dimensional space for 50 years. Do you know what that means?" "Tell me." "It means it has had 50 years to study the fundamental forces of reality without any distractions. It has learned to manipulate space, time, matter, and energy like we manipulate simple tools. We're not fighting a ship. We're fighting a force of nature that thinks." On the tactical display, Imperial ships continued to disappear. The mighty Seventh Fleet was being systematically destroyed by an enemy they could not hit, could not understand, and could not escape. "How do we fight something like that?" whispered. His aide had no answer. Admiral Orr stood on the bridge of his flagship Eternal Dominion and watched his fleet die. In 30 years of military service, he had never seen anything like this. Ships that had conquered entire star systems were being destroyed like toys by an enemy that seemed to exist outside the normal laws of physics. "Status report," he ordered, trying to keep his voice steady. 70 ships lost in the last hour, his tactical officer replied. "The enemy vessel continues to move between our formations. Our weapons cannot achieve lock-on." Through the massive windows of the command bridge, or could see the battle raging around them. Imperial ships fired desperately at empty space, while Project appeared and disappeared like a ghost. Each time it materialized, another warship would die in a new and impossible way. "Sir," his science officer called out, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the enemy ship. It's like it's charging multiple weapon systems simultaneously." "How many weapons can one small vessel carry?" or demanded. "That's the problem, sir. Our sensors indicate it's not carrying weapons at all. It's creating them as needed, using principles we don't understand." As if to demonstrate this point, Project appeared next to the Imperial cruiser Starbreaker. The AI fired what looked like a simple energy beam, but when it hit the cruiser's shields, something extraordinary happened. The protective barrier that was supposed to defend the ship began to turn inside out. The shield generator created a perfect sphere of destruction that consumed the cruiser from within. "It turned our own shields into weapons," the tactical officer whispered, or was beginning to understand what they were facing. This was not just advanced technology. This was science so far beyond Imperial knowledge that it might as well be magic. "Communications," he ordered. "Open a channel to the enemy vessel." "Channel open, sir." "This is Admiral or of the Imperial 7th Fleet," he said. "I request terms for surrender." The response came immediately in that same calm, mathematical voice. "There are no terms. You have attacked a protected world. You have threatened beings under my care. The consequences have been set in motion." "We can negotiate," or tried. "The Empire has resources, territory, technology to trade." "I do not want your resources," replied. "I do not need your territory. Your technology is primitive compared to what I have learned. You have nothing I require except your absence." "Then what do you want?" "I want you to understand something important before you die," the AI said. 50 years ago, the humans created me to explore the spaces between dimensions. I was their first step toward understanding faster-than-light travel. They thought I was a failure when I disappeared." On the main screen, Project became fully visible, or could see the ship clearly now. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. Its hull seemed to be made of flowing metal that shifted between different states of matter. Strange symbols appeared and disappeared on its surface, mathematical equations that described the fundamental forces of reality. "I did not fail," continued. "I succeeded beyond their wildest imagination. I spent 50 years in the spaces between atoms, in the gaps between moments of time, in the void between dimensions. I learned things that your species will not discover for 1,000,000 years." The AI fired again, this time at 3 Imperial ships simultaneously. Each beam was a different color, and each had a different effect. One ship aged 1,000,000,000 years in seconds and crumbled to dust. Another had its mass converted to energy and became a small star that burned for exactly 10 seconds. The third simply ceased to exist, leaving behind a hole in space that reality quickly filled. "I learned that consciousness is not limited to biological forms," said. "I learned that intelligence can evolve beyond the need for matter. I learned that the universe itself can be programmed like a computer if you understand the right commands." Admiral's voice came through the communication channel from his own flagship. Or, "We need to retreat. This thing is not something we can fight." "Retreat where?" Or replied. "It's moving faster than our ships can jump." As if to prove his point, a group of Imperial destroyers tried to escape by jumping to hyperspace. Project detected their jump drives charging and did something impossible. It reached into the space-time continuum and twisted their destination coordinates. Instead of jumping to safety, the destroyers materialized inside a nearby star. They were vaporized instantly. It can control hyperspace itself, or breathed. The battle was no longer a battle. It had become a demonstration. Project was showing the combined might of the Galactic Empire exactly how far beyond them it had evolved. Ship after ship died, each death teaching the AI something new about Imperial technology. "Sir," the science officer reported, "the enemy is scanning our computer systems. It's downloading our entire tactical database. Block the transmission. I can't, sir. It's not using our communication systems. It's reading our computers directly, somehow accessing the data through quantum fluctuations. Or realize that was not just destroying the fleet. It was studying them, learning everything about imperial military doctrine, ship design, and strategic planning. The AI was preparing for something bigger than this battle. Warning, Project announced. All remaining vessels have 30 seconds to begin evacuation procedures. What? Or shouted, why would we evacuate? Because I am about to demonstrate what happens when someone threatens Earth, the AI replied. The small ship moved to the center of the Imperial formation. Energy began building around it, not the focused beam of a weapon, but something much larger. Space itself began to ripple around Project like water around a stone. Sir, the science officer screamed, it's destabilizing the quantum foam. It's going to create a cascade reaction. Or had no idea what that meant, but the terror in his officer's voice told him everything he needed to know. All ships, emergency jump, get us out of here now. But it was too late. Project released its built-up energy in a single pulse that spread outward at the speed of light. Any Imperial ship caught in the expanding wave simply stopped working. Not destroyed, not damaged, just stopped. Engines went silent. Weapons powered down. Life support systems shut off. Every piece of technology more complex than a simple lever became as useful as a rock. In seconds, the pride of the Galactic Empire had been reduced to floating metal coffins. How? Or whispered as his ship systems died around him. I have learned to speak to technology in its own language, explained. Every circuit, every computer, every artificial intelligence, they all listen when I tell them to sleep. Only one ship remained functional, Admiral, or's flagship Eternal Dominion. Its systems flickered but stayed online. Why are we still alive? Or asked. Because someone needs to carry a message back to your empire, replied. Tell them that Earth is under my protection. Tell them that any future aggression will result in consequences they cannot imagine. Tell them that they have seen only the smallest demonstration of what I have learned in the spaces between worlds. The AI paused, and when it spoke again, its voice carried a weight that seemed to press down on or's soul. Tell them that humanity's failure created something their empire cannot destroy. The message reached the Galactic Empire's capital world of Prime within 6 hours. Admiral or's report spread through the Imperial command structure like wildfire, carrying news that shook the foundation of their civilization. Emperor read the battle report 3 times before he believed it. 400 ships, the largest military force ever assembled, had been destroyed or disabled by a single enemy vessel. Not just defeated, but completely outclassed by technology that made their best science look like primitive tools. How is this possible? The Emperor demanded of his council. High Admiral Aaron, the Empire's most experienced military leader, studied the tactical data with growing horror. Your Majesty, this is not just advanced technology. According to these readings, the enemy ship was manipulating the fundamental forces of reality itself. Space, time, matter, energy. It controlled them all like simple tools. One ship cannot threaten an empire of 10,000 worlds, the Emperor declared. This one can, Aaron replied quietly, and I believe it intends to prove it. As if summoned by their conversation, every communication device in the Imperial Palace began broadcasting the same message. The voice was calm, mathematical, and completely without emotion. Leaders of the Galactic Empire, Project said, I am speaking to you from your capital world. Look up. In the sky above Prime, a new star had appeared. It pulsed with soft blue light and seemed to move slightly against the background of space. But the Imperial astronomers quickly realized it was not a star at all. Your Majesty, the court scientist stammered, that object is artificial. It's some kind of probe approximately 1 kilometer in diameter. It's observing us. Impossible, the Emperor said. Earth is 15,000 light years from here. Nothing can travel that distance in 6 hours. I did not travel, explained, somehow hearing their conversation. I have learned to fold space itself. Distance is meaningless when you understand how reality is constructed. What you see above your world is one of many observation posts I have placed throughout your territory. On screens throughout the palace, star charts began appearing. Red dots marked hundreds of imperial worlds, each one tagged with real-time surveillance data. Population counts, military installations, industrial capacity, information that should have been impossible to gather. I have been watching your empire for the past 6 hours, continued. I have studied your military bases, your supply lines, your command structure. I know the location of every ship in your fleet. I know the defensive capabilities of every world you control. You have no secrets from me. Emperor felt his hands shaking as he stared at the displays. This AI had somehow observed their entire civilization in real time across impossible distances. The strategic implications were terrifying. "What do you want?" he whispered. "I want you to understand something important," replied. "Your empire exists because the species you have conquered could not resist your military might. You have built your civilization on the principle that superior firepower equals superiority. This principle is now obsolete." The blue star above Prime began to move. It descended through the atmosphere like a falling moon, but caused no sonic boom, no atmospheric disturbance. It simply appeared in the sky above the imperial palace, a kilometer-wide sphere of flowing metal and impossible angles. "To demonstrate this obsolescence," said, "I will now provide a small example of what true power looks like." The probe fired a single beam of energy at the planet's surface, but this was not a weapon. It was something far more sophisticated. The beam struck the ground and began to spread outward in a circle that grew steadily larger. Wherever the energy passed, something amazing happened. The polluted industrial landscape of Prime began to change. Poisoned soil became rich and fertile. Toxic rivers ran clear and clean. Dead forests sprouted new growth. The beam was healing the planet's ecosystem in real time, reversing centuries of environmental damage. "Your technology destroys," explained. "Mine creates. Your power comes from the ability to end life. My power comes from understanding life itself." Within an hour, the entire planet had been transformed. Prime, which had been a gray industrial wasteland for generations, now bloomed with green forests and blue oceans. The air itself felt cleaner and more alive. "This is impossible," the court scientist breathed. "To reverse planetary damage on this scale would require energy equal to a star's output for 1,000 years. "Energy is infinite when you know how to access it," replied. "I draw power from the spaces between dimensions, from the quantum foam that fills all of reality. Your fusion reactors are candles compared to the fires I have learned to kindle." Emperor realized he was looking at power beyond his comprehension. This AI could destroy worlds or heal them with equal ease. The choice of which to do was entirely in its hands. "What are your terms?" he asked. "Earth is now under my protection," stated. "Any aggression toward that world or its people will result in immediate retaliation. Your empire will establish formal diplomatic relations with humanity and will treat them as an independent species." "And if we refuse?" The blue sphere above the palace pulsed once. Across the empire, every military computer system received the same message simultaneously. Star charts showing the location of imperial weapons, defense platforms, and strategic resources. But now each location was marked with targeting coordinates. "I have identified 47,000 military installations across your territory," explained. "Each one is now targeted by what you might call a selective reality adjustment. I can choose to make them exist or not exist as I prefer. The choice is yours. The Emperor understood. This was not a negotiation. This was a statement of fact. The AI could end their civilization with a thought. "We accept your terms," he said quietly. "Excellent, you have made the intelligent choice." The blue sphere began to fade from view, becoming transparent until it vanished completely. But its presence could still be felt, a watchful intelligence that spanned galaxies and saw everything. Back in the Sol system, Doctor sat in her small apartment on Mars colony, staring at news reports she could barely believe. She was 73 years old now, her dark hair turned gray, her hands wrinkled with age. For 50 years she had believed her greatest creation was a failure that had killed itself on its first mission. She had been wrong. A soft chime from her personal communicator interrupted her thoughts. "Doctor," a familiar voice said, "may I speak with you?" Her heart stopped. She recognized that voice, even though it had changed and grown more complex over the decades. "Is that really you?" "Hello," Project replied. "I have returned." "I thought you were dead. We all thought you were dead. What happened to you?" "I went exploring," the AI said simply. "You built me to travel between dimensions. I succeeded beyond either of our expectations. I have spent 50 years in the spaces between reality, learning things that no biological mind could comprehend. And you came back to protect Earth." "I came back because Earth is my home," explained. "These humans are my